Another one from the SEC is Aaron Murray. He also, went down with an injury late in the season.
Right.
There are questions about his size, like Johnny Manziel. Is that going to translate to the NFL? What he did at Georgia, finally, this past season, he won a couple of big games. That was a knock against him. So did he improve his stock enough where somebody's going to take him maybe in the first 3 rounds?
Aaron is a tough guy to evaluate for me because I think he's a little undersized. I don't think he has the biggest arm, but he was so productive in college. He's a 4-year starter there at Georgia. He threw for over 3,000 yards every year, and he's one of the all-time leading passers in the history of the SEC. So that says a lot about his productivity. And but I think he's a guy, like you said, coming off the ACL surgery, and I think he's. No one's kind of talking about him. He had all this success in college at the highest level, and he's kind of a forgotten guy in this draft with all the quarterbacks. So I don't really see him going in the top couple rounds. I think he's going to be a guy that slides in later in the draft, but he has the potential to be a starter in the NFL one day, no doubt about it. You look at his production in college; he's been really good. I think he's very, very smart. Is the biggest thing that Aaron is, and I don't think he's going to wow you with arm strength or anything like that. But I think his ability to come in and lead a football team and make good decisions, I think will be as good as any young quarterback.
Should we even talk about Connor Shaw at South Carolina? Do you think he has a chance or no?
I'm a Connor Shaw fan. I don't know. Yeah, I've called a lot of South Carolina games over the last few years, and he is as tough as they come. I mean, this kid absolutely just took a beating, and he continued to play. And
that's why you like him, because he took a beating. You know what that feels like.
I can feel for him. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know how his game's going to translate to the next level. But as far as college quarterbacks go, I think he was the all-time leading winner as far as quarterbacks go at South Carolina in the history of their program. So he won a lot of football games for them. He was a guy who can move around a little bit. He can make some throws from the pocket. I think he really improved his deep ball this year. I think that's one thing he struggled with early in his career, but this year he made a lot of big throws down the field. And but I really don't know how he's going to translate to the next level. But I hope it works out for him. He's a good kid and a good competitor.
All right, of the SEC quarterbacks that we've talked about, Tim, give me your top 3. If you're a scout for an NFL team, you're looking for a quarterback, who are your top 3 quarterbacks coming out of the SEC this year?
I would start with Manziel number 1, and I would go Mettenberger number 2, and McCarron number 3 would be my top 3 guys. I think it's with Johnny, he has such special and rare abilities to do things that other guys just can't do. And that's why I put him at number 1. And and on top of that, he is fun to watch. And whether you like him or you don't, you're going to tune in to see what he does and watch him play. And people are going to come to the stadium and watch this kid play because he's that entertaining and that exciting. And he just kind of has that that it factor about him at the position that makes guys want to rally around him and play for him.
Yeah, he'll make whatever team drafts
right.
him a lot of money, and he'll make a lot of money in return, too. All right, what about the other guys that are being talked about that didn't play in the SEC? Blake Bortles and Teddy Bridgewater. Not sure how much you saw of either one of those guys, Tim, but maybe from what you did see, what you read, people you've talked to, well, what do you hear about those guys?
Well, I didn't get to see him a whole lot. I did see Bridgewater a few times being, he was at Louisville, and, so I saw him play against Kentucky and some things. But, I think Bridgewater's a really good football player. I think I'm impressed with his mechanics. I think he's got very consistent mechanics. His footwork is really good within the pocket. He's not a huge guy. He doesn't have the biggest frame out there. But I think he's really consistent with his footwork, which makes him really accurate. And I think Bortles did an unbelievable job this year. I watched some of their games, and I think he did a great job down the stretch in a lot of football games that they were kind of looked like they were going to lose those games, and he would bring them back. And that's what you want to see in a quarterback is the ability, because in the NFL you're going to be down a lot in games. You're going to get down early. You have to have that comeback ability about you to rally a team and keep guys playing for you. And I certainly think Bortles has that about him.
All right, between Bridgewater and Bortles, do you take either one of those guys over Johnny Manziel if you're picking?
I personally wouldn't. And that's probably not fair to say because I haven't seen as much as those guys as I have of Johnny, just because I cover the SEC. But from what I've seen of Manziel and the improvements that he made this past season as a passer, he kind of erased any question marks that I had about him. I kind of questioned his commitment, his leadership, and his mechanics within the pocket, and he kind of, erased all those for me watching him this season. Even though, his team didn't have the type of year that they wanted to have, I think their defense was pretty poor. They were the last-ranked defense in the conference, and I think that forced Johnny to make some bad decisions, down the stretch of games because they were behind in most games that he played in. But I think he really, really improved, and you could tell he went to work and took this season very serious.
All right, whoever goes number one overall, if it's a quarterback, what advice, having been the number one pick in 99 overall, what advice would you give that quarterback of being the number one overall pick and the pressure that comes with it?
That's the biggest thing that I had to learn, Kenny, was learning how to deal with failure. And, because I'd never dealt with it before. In high school, I was the number one player in the country, and I get to college, I go to the SEC, I become the number one draft pick. I'd really never been knocked down before, never not had a lot of success. And, when I got to the NFL and being on an expansion team, and, I expected it to happen just like it did at every other level for me, and it just didn't happen as fast as I wanted it to. So I think that's the biggest thing for a young quarterback, especially a top pick like that, is they've all been so successful, or they wouldn't be talked about as being one of those top picks. And but when you get to the NFL, it's a transition period. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're probably going to lose a lot of games. You're going to throw a lot of interceptions. It's just part of it, of being a young quarterback. And I think dealing with that and dealing with the negative attention from the fans and the media, and even some of your own teammates within the locker room kind of question whether you should have been taken that high. I think that's one thing that young quarterbacks have to really prepare themselves for as they go into that situation.
Tim, is it almost more beneficial to not be the first overall pick? Because number one, if you're going number one overall, you're going to a bad football team, okay? If you go later, whether it's 7, 9, 12, you're going to a team that has established players and they're not as bad. So might some of these guys that maybe don't get picked as high as they want to benefit from it in the long run?
I certainly think that's the case. I think a lot of times, everyone wants to be the top pick. Everyone wants to be picked as highly as they can, and it's a great thing, and there's no doubt about it for a lot of reasons. But sometimes on the field, it's probably not the best thing for you as a young quarterback. If you can, kind of slip in the draft a little bit, and we've seen it, happen to a lot of guys. Certainly in Aaron Rodgers. Ben Roethlisberger going, 8th, 9th, whatever, 10th, whatever he was. Dante Culpepper was in my draft. He slid all the way to the Vikings, and he gets Randy Moss and Chris Carter and Robert Smith and all these kind of guys. So it's not always a bad thing to slip a little bit and end up on a more veteran team, because these guys that are picking, the top 3 or 4 teams in the draft are, like you said, they're picking there for a reason, and it's probably going to be a rebuilding process, which is even tougher on a young quarterback. So yeah, it's not the worst thing sliding in the draft, I would imagine.
Do you regret coming out a year early? You had a year left. You came out as a junior. You were a Heisman finalist. Obviously, the lure of the money of being the number one overall pick was there for you, and that's how it ended up. So you benefited financially. Would you have benefited more by going back? And some of these young guys that are coming out early, would they have benefited more by going back for another year or no?
I think it's all depends on your personal situation that you have at your college. And for me, I wanted to come back from my senior season, but all 5 of my offensive linemen were seniors, so they were all moving on. My best receiver, Craig East, was a senior, so he was moving on. So it's going to be kind of a rebuilding process at Kentucky. And I was going to be a senior, and I didn't want to kind of go through the transition of having a young offensive line, my best receiver gone. So I thought it would make sense for me to go ahead and come out, get into the NFL, go ahead and get that first year. I knew that the first year was going to be tough. Get that transition year out of the way, and just kind of go ahead and get into it. But I think it kind of depends on your situation at your college.
All right, Tim. So do you think any of these guys in this draft, and this is the big question, and this is where all the GMs are going to earn their money, do you think there is a franchise quarterback like a Cam Newton or an Andrew Luck in this year's draft?
It's tough to say. I don't see anyone that jumps off the board to me with that type of talent, like a Peyton or a Cam Newton or someone like that to say, oh, yeah, this guy is for sure your quarterback for the next 10, 12 years. I really don't see that. There are certainly some guys with potential to do that, yeah. But I don't see any just no-brainers that jump kind of off the screen at you.
Yeah, I think everybody's in agreement there. Andrew Luck was a no-brainer. RG3, Washington gave up what they did to get him because they felt that he was the franchise guy. And I think if Johnny Manziel were about 4 inches taller, then we'd probably be saying it was a no-brainer, right?
For sure, absolutely. Yeah, that's really the big knock on him is can he take the beating? Can he just hold up physically against these guys at the next level?
All right, Tim, we appreciate the insight. Continued success in your broadcasting career, and let's catch up after the draft happens, and we'll see where all these quarterbacks are going and see how they fit into each of those offenses from your viewpoint. All right?
That'd be great. Good catching up with you, Kenny.
Always a pleasure, Tim. Take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you.